20 years since my debut. It's hard to believe that I started 20 years ago. It's hard to believe that I'm that old. I don't feel that old, but the reality is I have been in the business for a long time, and I'm very happy and thankful and that I've been able to continue to work, and most thankful that I've been able to find a new world and a new community of theater artists here in Korea that I can share my time with. 20 years in this business is a long time, and I've met so many amazing people and worked with so many amazing artists that I count myself as one of the luckiest people in the world. It seems really appropriate that I'm doing Seopyeonjae now because, like you said, entering into my 40s is definitively a new chapter, is definitively a new time, and it feels like I and now my family are starting anew. And for that reason, it seems incredibly appropriate that I do something organically and endemically Korean like Seopyeonjae. I'm incredibly excited about it, and it couldn't be a better way to start my 40s. My mother is by far the most amazing woman on the planet, next to my wife, of course. The amount of sacrifice that my mother went through in order to raise my brother and sister and I, now that I'm a parent, is something, whenever I think about it, brings me a lot of emotion. When I think about my mom, I think about car rides, you know. My mom, ever since I was incredibly young, would drive me 30 minutes to an hour and a half away for me to experience art, for me to experience music, for me to experience piano lessons, violin lessons, to participate in orchestra. And unbeknownst to me, it was during those trips that I became even closer to my mom than I think normal children would be to their parents. It was something that I really resented. You know, I didn't enjoy, for a long time, I didn't enjoy piano lessons, I didn't enjoy violin lessons, I didn't enjoy going to orchestra. But my mom would make it a point of saying, you know, you need this in your life. You need to have culture in your life, and it's just going to make you a better person. And so we would ride an hour to rehearsals and an hour back from rehearsals, and we would talk the whole way. We'd talk about what was going on in my life. We would talk about school. We'd talk about music. We'd talk about the differences in music styles that we had. For whatever reason, when I think about my mom, I think about those trips. I think about how much, you know, in such a subtle way of even just driving me to and from rehearsals, just showed how much she loved me, you know. It showed how much of her life she was giving, not only to me, but to my brother and sister, because it wasn't just for me, but she did it for them as well. It makes me just, it makes me miss those days, and it makes me think about what I will do if I will ever be as good of a parent as she was for me. The core of my life, you know, what used to be, for most of my life, I always just wanted to be motivated by the idea of what brings me the most satisfaction out of life, what brings me the truest sense of happiness for myself. And that didn't necessarily mean a lot of money or a lot of friends or a big audience of people or a big house, a nice car. It's just, I always ask myself, are you doing this because you love it? Are you doing this because it makes you a better person? Are you doing it because it satisfies your soul? And I think that is the core of my life. That question, always asking the question of why are you doing this? Is this something that inspires you? Is it something that makes you strive to be better? And I think as you know, as my life has gone on, and I have 2 sons now, and more and more, my eyes become their eyes. Their eyes become my eyes, you know. I see the world through their eyes, and I ask, not only what I'm doing in my life bringing me happiness, but is what I'm doing in my life bringing them happiness? Am I living in such a way that can inspire them? Am I living in such a way that will make them better people? It's an incredible challenge, but one that has steered me into growing into a person that I've never imagined that I'd become. The musical industry here in Korea is exploding, and it's an incredible place to be as an actor. I think for any actor, for any artist to be experiencing what's going on in Korea now with musicals. There's such an appreciation for musical storytelling that isn't absent in the United States, but musicals have been around for a much longer time in the United States, and things are much more compartmentalized. And because the United States is so large, the type of storytelling that goes on there is relatively specific. As an Asian American actor, as a Korean American actor, I'm rather limited to what I can do in the States if I'm not working with a director or a producer who's open-minded, who's able to understand that American can mean a multitude of things, that a doctor in the United States, an American doctor in the United States, can be African American, can be Caucasian American, Korean American, Indian American. These are all things that are slowly changing but slowly. Coming to Korea, where the musical industry is growing in leaps and strides, it seemed like an opportunity not to be missed for someone like me, a Korean American whose face is similar to the actors here in Korea. It seemed like an opportunity for me to do roles I would never be given an opportunity to in the United States. A role such as Chris in Miss Saigon, Gringoire in Notre Dame de Paris, even Dutu in the last show that I did, Pierre Culture Namja. These are shows in the United States, you know, when people think of a Frenchman, they think of someone white. When they think of a poet in France, they think of somebody white. When you think of an American soldier, you think of somebody white. And that's not the case at all, you know. And eventually, I think the United States will catch up with that idea. But in Korea, because the community of actors is entirely Korean, we're all given the opportunity to do these roles for a Korean audience. In Korea, I'm given the opportunity to just do roles that I would never normally be able to do. And so that's what motivated me to come here, be part of a community where my look wasn't a deterrent, wasn't an obstacle for me to have to get over. Yeah, and also the country of Korea is actually, just logistically speaking, it's a smaller community, it's a smaller country. Now that I have a family, even if I did a show in Seoul and needed to go on tour, the furthest away I would have to go would be 3 hours by train. So I could still stay close to my family. In the United States, my family and I live in Los Angeles, and if I were wanting to do a show in New York, for example, on Broadway, or San Francisco, or Seattle, or in the United States now, there are an incredible number of amazing theaters to work in, but it would require a plane flight of like 6 hours. You know, to get to New York from LA is 6 hours, and the commute would be impossible to do it and see my family every day. So logistically speaking, Korea is just a much better place for my family and I to grow up, or for my family and I to be right now if I wanted to work as an actor. I don't think I do that because I want to. I do that because I have to. You know, the challenge in performing not in my native tongue of English is that, you know, the nuances of the beauty, nuances and the beauty of the Korean language are much harder for me to come by. And so it's only through rote repetition that I can sort of gain that. And again, when we talked about double casting, when I get to see other actors say these lines and sing these lines, I get to sort of see, okay, this is this is the feel of this. It's not exactly what the words are saying, but the nuance here is different, or the style is different, or the intention isn't exactly what the words mean. Doing it over and over for me is about getting just even the technicalities of language out. But then as the technicality gets solidified in my system, then sort of I can move on to the next step. It's something that I feel very blessed about. Even though it's much more work for me to work here in Korea than it is in the States, it really has made me a better actor, having to go over things, having to scour over things rather than just to sort of gloss over them. Because in English, you can get something and you can read it, I can read it, and I can get it right away and sort of get the feel of it. And maybe because I do it so quickly, I don't exactly get it as deeply as I can in Korean. And so for that reason, I feel very lucky to be able to be forced to have to work harder, because I don't necessarily think I would. Of course. No, I think that's why as actors, we're all insecure. It's part of the reason why we do what we do, because we need the validation of an audience to tell us that we're doing okay. I think I'm particularly sensitive here in Korea because of my Korean. When it comes time to be on stage, you definitely have to let all that go. You have to forget about what you think people are going to think about you. You have to forget about what other actors are going to be thinking about you. It's incredibly hard. It's incredibly challenging to forget everything. And that's the challenge of the actor. The challenge of the actor is to live in the characters that you're given and not to think about what others think about what you're doing. Well, for every important decision in my life, I always go to my wife. She makes a lot of important decisions for me, actually. But, decision-making dilemmas are much easier, actually, now, because the decisions aren't just for myself, but they're for my family. And so when it comes to making difficult decisions, sometimes it's easier to make them when you think about other people more than for yourself. So now that I'm a father and a husband, and I realize the importance of family, dilemmas seem to be not as prevalent. There are more difficult decisions to make in life, but they are sometimes easier to come to terms with because of the need for other people's happiness beyond your own. There's that moment in the day where you just get up from sleeping and the house is quiet and no one else is stirring, and you are by yourself looking out the window at the start of a new day. You're not saying anything and you're not doing anything, and you're just by yourself and sort of experiencing the world around you. You feel the ground at your feet. You breathe the air in front of you. That's when I think you're most yourself, sort of that moment when you just wake up. That's when I'm most me, because once somebody else comes into the world, then you are that person for that person. As actors, to be totally honest with you, as actors, we're never ourselves. We're always on. We're always trying to show you what you want to see. And that's also a challenge. I try to be myself all the time. I try to be as honest of a person as I can be, but in the back of all of our minds, we want the world to like us. I mean, that's why we're actors. And so I think there's an unconscious part of us all that knows what people want to see. I would hope that I'm not as influenced by that as I think most people are, but I'm sure that I am. So I'm most me when you don't see me. I'm most me when I'm by myself. And how sad that is, because that means that no one in the world will ever see the true you. The interesting thing about it all is that the moments where you are most you is when you're by yourself, which is interesting because that means that no one else will ever see the true you. And isn't that sad?